when Malcolm Wright, a decorated firefighter, moved into the quiet suburban neighborhood of Maplewood, he hoped for a fresh start. He had spent years saving lives, running into burning buildings, and putting his own safety aside for strangers. But as he unloaded boxes from his truck, he quickly realized not everyone was happy about his arrival. His next-door neighbor, Ed Cartwright, an older white man, stood on his porch, arms crossed, glaring, Ed muttering to his wife, "There goes the neighborhood." It wasn't the first time Malcolm had seen that look. It was the look of someone who judged him before even knowing his name. For weeks, Ed made life as difficult as possible for Malcolm. The first night, Malcolm found his trash cans knocked over. Then came the noise complaints, even when his house was completely quiet. And worst of all, one morning, he stepped outside to find a police officer waiting for him. "Officer," awkwardly, we got a report about a suspicious man in the neighborhood." Malcolm just sighed. "You mean the homeowner?" The officer realized the mistake, apologized, and left. But Malcolm knew exactly who made that call. He could have confronted Ed. But Malcolm had dealt with men like him before. Instead, he focused on what truly mattered. One fateful night, the neighborhood was awakened by screams. Malcolm shot up from bed, his firefighter instincts kicking in instantly. Outside, Ed's house was on fire. Flames crawled up the walls. Smoke choked the air. And standing in the front yard was Ed's wife, sobbing. Ed still inside. Malcolm didn't hesitate. While others stood frozen, he ran straight into the fire. He kicked down the door, heat slamming into his face. Inside, the smoke was thick and blinding. Through the haze, he saw Ed, trapped under a fallen wooden beam, coughing violently. Ed's eyes widened in shock as he saw who had come to save him. "You?" Malcolm didn't respond. He just lifted the beam, threw Ed over his shoulder, and carried him out. As soon as Malcolm emerged, the crowd erupted into cheers. Ed collapsed onto the grass, gasping for air. His wife clutched Malcolm's hands, sobbing. "You saved him. Thank you, thank you." Malcolm nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. But Ed? Ed just stared at Malcolm, his face a mix of disbelief, shame, and something else, realization. He had spent months trying to push Malcolm out, and yet, when his life was on the line, the very man he despised was the one who saved him. It took days before Ed found the courage to face Malcolm again. This time he wasn't glaring. He was nervous. He knocked. Malcolm opened the door, surprised to see Ed standing there, holding a homemade pie in a box. Margaret made this. For you." Malcolm took the box, amused. "Didn't take you for the pie-making type." "I'm not, but she said it's the least we could do." Ed paused, then looked Malcolm in the eye. I was wrong about you." A beat of silence. Then Malcolm chuckled, shaking his head. "No, Ed, you were wrong about yourself." From that night on, things changed. Ed didn't just stop his complaints. He started defending Malcolm whenever anyone else in the neighborhood made comments. Because sometimes it takes nearly losing everything to see the truth. And the truth was, Malcolm wasn't just his neighbor. He was the man who saved his life.